Before you listen any further, allow yourself to become still, not strained, not expectant, but quietly receptive. There is a simple truth that governs every event of your life, though it has been hidden in plain sight. You have been taught to believe that the world acts upon you, that circumstances shape you, that fate or chance determines your path. Yet all your days, in ways subtle and unseen, reality has been faithfully responding to what you have assumed yourself to be, not to your wishes, not to your hopes, not even to your efforts, but to the quiet acceptance of what feels true within you. When this is recognized, not merely understood, but inwardly felt, a great calm descends. For you realize that nothing is against you, nothing is arbitrary, and nothing is withheld. There is only consciousness assuming form, and the forms obey without question. The foundation upon which this teaching rests is not complicated, though it is profound. It asks that you reverse the direction of your attention. Most people live as though life begins on the outside and moves inward, as though the visible world were the cause and their inner reactions the effect. They believe that if circumstances change, then thoughts may soften, feelings may improve, and identity may evolve. But this is a reversal of the true order. All things begin within, not as effort or strain, but as assumption. An assumption is not something you loudly declare or anxiously repeat. It is what you quietly consent to as real. It is what you feel to be natural. It is what you return to when you are not watching yourself. Consciousness is the only reality, and consciousness never argues. It does not debate whether a belief is reasonable or deserved. It simply expresses what it accepts. The world you call external is nothing more than the faithful mirror of this inner acceptance. You do not see the mirror thinking, choosing, or resisting. It reflects, and so it is with life. Once this is grasped, you begin to see that the question is never how to change the world, but how you are dwelling within yourself. Most imagine that desire is something distant, something to be reached, earned, or waited for. They think of it as an object placed before them in time. Yet desire is not a thing, it is a state calling you. It is an invitation to occupy a new conception of self. When you desire, you are being shown who you may be, not what you may get. The error lies in continuing to think of desire while remaining identified with the one who lacks it. In that condition, the mind is divided, and division cannot produce fulfillment. To think from the desire fulfilled is not an act of imagination in the common sense. It is not pretending or visual display. It is a quiet shift of identity. It is the inward acceptance that the state implied by the desire is now the ground on which you stand. When this acceptance is sincere, effort falls away. There is no urgency, because urgency belongs to the one who is still waiting. There is no strain, because strain belongs to the one who believes something must be forced into existence. Observe how naturally life already demonstrates this principle. Consider how easily you assume certain things about yourself without thought. You assume your name, your language, your place in familiar rooms. You do not affirm them, you simply are them, and the world responds accordingly. No one challenges you to prove your name. No one asks you to justify your right to understand your own tongue. These assumptions are stable, and stability is the secret power. What you assume steadily becomes the law under which your world arranges itself. The difficulty for many is not that they cannot imagine differently, but that they do not remain loyal to the inner position they have glimpsed. They visit it briefly, then return to the familiar self that feels solid and justified by past experience. They say, I felt it once, but nothing happened, not realizing that nothing could happen while they resumed their former residence. States are places of consciousness, and you must live in them, not merely visit them, if they are to bear fruit. To think from the desire fulfilled means you allow the inner dialogue to change without force. Your reactions soften because they no longer need to defend an old story. Your expectations shift because you are no longer scanning the horizon for proof. The world may appear unchanged at first, but this is of no concern to the one who understands the order of creation. Effects always lag behind causes. The inner decision is the cause. The outer confirmation must follow in its own season. It is here that faith is often misunderstood. Faith is not belief in a future event. It is not optimism or positive anticipation. Faith is fidelity to an unseen assumption. It is remaining inwardly at rest in the acceptance of what is not yet visible. When you are faithful, you do not argue with appearances. You do not seek signs. You do not measure progress. You simply persist in being. This persistence is not effortful. It is the same persistence with which you remain yourself throughout the day. You do not wake each morning and reassert your identity with strain. You simply resume being who you are. In the same way, the assumed state becomes natural when you no longer treat it as a temporary exercise. It becomes your dwelling place. As you listen, you may notice the mind wanting to turn this into a method, something to apply or perform. Gently allow that impulse to pass. This teaching is not about doing more, but about being more honest with where you are inwardly seated. Ask yourself, not with judgment, but with curiosity, where you return when you are tired, when you are alone, when no one is watching. That return is your true assumption, and it is from there that life unfolds. There's a quiet authority that comes when you recognize that you are always assuming something. Even doubt is an assumption. Even waiting is an assumption. Even feeling unworthy is an assumption. And because this is so, nothing is wasted. You are never powerless. You are simply loyal, often unconsciously, to a state that has become familiar. When you begin to sense that identity precedes experience, a subtle freedom arises. You no longer blame circumstances, nor do you blame yourself. You see that every experience has been an outpicturing of an inner stance once occupied. And if it was occupied once, it can be vacated. Not through struggle, but through gentle withdrawal of belief. To withdraw belief from an old state does not mean fighting it. It means ceasing to feed it with attention and emotional investment. You do not argue with a shadow. You turn toward the light that casts a different form. In the same way, you turn inward toward the feeling of being rather than the evidence of lack. Feeling is the secret, not emotion, but the quiet sense of identity, the feeling of this is who I am now. As this feeling deepens, you may notice moments of stillness where nothing seems to be happening. These moments are not empty. They are gestation. Creation is not noisy. The most significant changes occur beneath the surface where consciousness rearranges itself without display. Remain with this understanding gently. Let it settle without urgency. You are not being asked to abandon reason, only to recognize its proper place. Reason belongs to the world of effects. Consciousness belongs to the world of causes. When you learn to stand where causes are born, the need to manage effects dissolves. And so, without effort, without strain, you begin to see that reality has always been obedient. It has never resisted you, it has only reflected you. As this realization grows quieter and deeper, the mind relaxes its grip and a new orientation becomes possible, one not based on hope, but on knowing. As this understanding settles, something subtle begins to reveal itself. You become aware not only of what you think in deliberate moments, but of what you quietly consent to throughout the day. The mind is never idle. It is always interpreting, always assuming, always placing you somewhere within yourself. And it is from this inner placement that life unfolds. You may notice that the world seems to speak to you through your own reactions. What troubles you points to an assumption you are still inhabiting. What soothes you reveals a state you have already made familiar. Daily life then becomes the classroom, not because it demands correction, but because it faithfully shows you where you are inwardly standing. The words you silently speak to yourself, especially when no one is listening, are not idle. They are the language of your assumption. Inner conversations are the unseen currents shaping tomorrow's events. You do not need to force them to change. Simply observe them, and you will see that they always match the role you believe yourself to occupy. When a person says they are practicing this teaching, they often mean that they are setting aside moments to imagine or affirm. Yet the true practice is far quieter and far more constant. It is the loyalty you show to a chosen state when the mind is tempted to wander back to the familiar. You may find that an old story arises, not because it is true, but because it has been repeated. Habit has a voice and it speaks with confidence, but repetition does not make a thing real. Acceptance does. Persistence, in this sense, is not stubbornness. It is not clinging or convincing. It is simply remaining in the feeling of being the one who already is, rather than the one who is becoming. This distinction is subtle, yet it changes everything. The one who is becoming watches, waits, evaluates. The one who already is rests. And rest is a powerful signal to consciousness. It declares that the matter is settled. You may notice that when you rest inwardly, the urge to check the outer world diminishes. You no longer need reassurance in the form of signs or movement. This does not mean that you are indifferent to life, but that you are no longer dependent upon it for confirmation. You have moved the source of truth from the outside to the inside, where it has always belonged. It is here that many encounter resistance, not from the world, but from within. The mind may say, "This is irresponsible," or "This is self-deception." These thoughts are not obstacles. They are remnants of an old allegiance. They arise because you are shifting authority. You are no longer allowing past experience to dictate present identity, and past experience will always protest when its rule is challenged. Do not argue with these thoughts. Argument keeps them alive. Instead, notice that they appear only when you begin to feel differently about yourself. Their presence is not a sign of failure, but of transition. You are loosening the roots of an old state, and roots do not release without sensation. Yet sensation need not be followed. When you persist gently without emotional drama, something remarkable happens. The new assumption begins to feel ordinary, not exciting, not dramatic, but familiar. This is the mark of success. The mind no longer circles it with anticipation. It no longer asks, "Will this work?" Because that question belongs to the one who is still outside the state. Familiarity is the doorway through which manifestation passes. You may find that life presents moments that seem to contradict your assumption. These moments are invitations, not tests. They ask only one thing: where will you stand now? Will you interpret the moment as evidence of delay, or will you allow it to pass without meaning? The meaning you assign is the only power it has. When you do not react, you do not reinforce the old pattern. Uh, Inner conversations play a central role here, not the ones you rehearse deliberately, but the ones that arise spontaneously. When you catch yourself explaining, defending, or justifying, gently ask who is speaking. Is it the one who already is, or the one who is still trying to become? This simple noticing brings clarity without effort. Awareness alone begins to reorganize the inner world. There's no need to watch every thought. That would be exhausting and unnecessary. Instead, feel for the general atmosphere of your inner life. Is it expectant or settled? Is it tense or at ease? Atmosphere reveals state more clearly than individual thoughts. And atmosphere changes not by force, but by residence. Where you live inwardly determines the climate. As you remain loyal to the assumption, even quietly, you may notice moments of natural confidence emerging. Not bravado, not assertion, but a gentle knowing. This knowing does not seek expression. It does not announce itself, it simply is. And from this quiet center, actions may arise spontaneously, without planning or effort. These actions are not attempts to make something happen. They are expressions of alignment. It is important to understand that you are not asked to control life. Control belongs to fear. You are asked only to consent to a new self concept and allow life to reorganize around it. This reorganization may appear gradual or sudden, but its timing is not your concern. Timing is an effect. Identity is the cause. As this section draws you deeper, you may feel a softening of urgency. This is natural. Urgency dissolves when trust replaces effort. And trust in this teaching is simply the willingness to remain inwardly where you have chosen to be, regardless of appearances. Stay here without strain. Let the idea of loyalty sink in, not as discipline, but as devotion to your own awareness. You are not changing the world. You are changing where you stand within yourself. And from that standing, everything else follows. As this loyalty matures, there comes a point where effort quietly falls away. You may not notice the moment it happens because it does not announce itself. There is no inner declaration, no sense of arrival. Instead, there is a subtle easing as though something long held has been gently set down. The assumption no longer feels like something you are maintaining. It feels like something you are living from. And this is the threshold where embodiment begins. Embodiment is not intensity. It is not continual focus. It is the natural stabilization of identity. Just as you do not think about being awake throughout the day, you no longer think about being the one who already is. The state has become self-sustaining. Consciousness, having accepted it fully, no longer wavers between old and new. It rests, and rest is the final seal. At this stage, surrender takes on a different meaning. It is no longer the surrender of desire, but the surrender of resistance. You are not giving something up, you are giving way. You allow life to move without interference because you trust the principle that has been proven inwardly. You have seen, perhaps quietly and without drama, that when you change within, the world rearranges itself without instruction. There may still be moments when old sensations pass through. Memory may whisper, habit may knock, but they no longer command attention. They are recognized as echoes, not messages. An echo does not require a response. It fades on its own when not answered. In this way, the former self dissolves, not through struggle, but through neglect. Identity, once stabilized, expresses itself effortlessly. You do not try to feel worthy. Worthiness feels obvious. You do not try to feel secure. Security feels assumed. This does not make you passive. On the contrary, it makes you present. Action flows without the weight of personal striving. Decisions feel simple, not because life has become smaller, but because you are no longer divided within yourself. Here, the relationship with desire changes again. Desire is no longer experienced as longing. It appears as direction. It arises gently without urgency and is recognized as another invitation to expand consciousness. There is no fear in this because you understand now that every desire contains its own fulfillment as a state, already complete within awareness. Faith at this depth is no longer something you practice, it is something you inhabit. Doubt may still pass through the mind, but it does not settle. It finds no home. The ground of being has shifted, and only thoughts consistent with that ground can take root. This is not suppression, it is alignment. You may notice a quiet confidence that does not depend on outcome. This is perhaps the most liberating aspect of embodiment. You're no longer watching life to see if it agrees with you. You know it must because it always has. You rest in the understanding that consciousness cannot be contradicted by its own expression. As this rest deepens, time itself feels less pressing. You are no longer measuring progress because there is no sense of distance to cross. You are here, and here is sufficient. From this sufficiency, events unfold in their own way, often more gracefully than the mind could have planned. There is nothing dramatic about this state. It is simple, ordinary, quiet. And yet it is from this simplicity that the most profound transformations arise. The outer world, once so demanding of attention, becomes lighter. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer defines you. In this stillness, you may sense that you were never meant to struggle your way into fulfillment. You were meant to assume it, and in assuming it, to become it. Life was never withholding. It was waiting for recognition. Remain here without effort. Let the understanding breathe within you. There is nothing to hold on to and nothing to push away. Consciousness knows its own creations, and it brings them forth in perfect correspondence. And so you rest not in anticipation, but in quiet certainty, a certainty that does not need words, a certainty that does not need proof, a certainty that simply is and in being allows all things to follow.